Welcome to vocabulary lesson number 11. This is your second video of 4 videos for your final vocabulary additional assessment. There are 20 words in this video. There will be 20 words in each of the videos. Therefore, you have 80 vocabulary words to learn. So let's go ahead and get started. So for your first word, we have meander, which is a verb, and it means to wander randomly. The figures meander through the desert looking for a place to rest. So meander has connotations of aimlessness and hopelessness, and you can kind of see that in the image where it has a very dire tone to it. So keep that in mind when you use meander. It has a very negative connotation to it. So for our next word, we have instigate, which is also a verb that means to start trouble. So as a consequence for gathering his friends for a lunchtime to protest lima beans, Bart had to write, "I will not instigate a revolution," on the board over and over again. So instigate essentially means to cause, to develop, but it has connotations that again are slightly negative, where you're creating something that's very troublesome and that will cause problems for other people. Now again, if you're causing trouble for people who might deserve that trouble, or if you're creating trouble that might be necessary for positive change, then instigate can suddenly take a positive connotation. But keep in mind, instigate means to start trouble, and oftentimes that has negative connotations with it. So our next word is to obey. It's another verb, and it's for the word heed. So heed and instigate are very different words. One means to cause trouble, and one means to obey. So Bart failed to heed the warning signs, instead shook the precariously unsturdy structure with all of his might. So you might remember precarious is a previous vocabulary word that we had. But here we have heed, which means to obey, and here Bart's failing to obey the warning signs. Alright, for our next word we have virtuoso, which is actually a noun, and it's accomplished musician. So it's a very specific noun. So here we have Mickey Mouse as a well-known virtuoso, held equal to the lights of Frederick Chopin, and Yo-Yo Ma. Alright, so here we have virtuoso. It is a noun. It is a type of person. Alright, for our next word we have predecessor, which is also a noun. It is the person who came before another. So here we have the predecessor to all presidents is George Washington, the first president of the United States. So predecessor is a person who precedes. So this word should seem familiar. It's very similar to precedes, which means come before. Therefore, a predecessor is a person who comes before. Our next word is deplete, which is a verb, and it means to use up and to reduce. Alright, so here we have depleted of energy. He was unable to walk up the stairs and instead collapsed upon the floor. So deplete has pretty negative connotations. It's oftentimes used in conjunction with resources. So depleted energy, depleted resources. Therefore, when you use the word deplete, do know that it's oftentimes used in a negative way. Alright. Our next word is compliant, which is an adjective, and it means submissive and obedient. So someone who is compliant would likely heed the demands of others. So here we have, despite an intense desire to eat the hot dog, the compliant dog sat with the food in his mouth at the command of his owner. So here we have compliant, which is the adjective. If you wanted to turn it into a noun, you would drop the T and add a CE, making it compliance. So compliant is the adjective and compliance is the noun. For our next word, we have inadvertent, which is also an adjective. It means accidental and unintentional. After inadvertently rolling the ball off the back of his head, the soccer player scored the winning goal of the game. Even though it was a mistake, the goal still counted. So here, inadvertent is an adjective, but this has been changed into an adverb by adding the ly, and essentially means accidental or unintentional. Our next word is acquiesce, which is a verb. It means to agree finally to go along with something. So when you acquiesce, it has connotations of giving in. There's been an argument, someone has asked you over and over again, and finally they give you what you want. That's acquiesce. So here we have Barbosa, after hearing Elizabeth Swan's demands to return home, declined to acquiesce her request. Instead, he kidnapped her and took sail to sea. All right, our next word is levity, which is a noun that means humor. So here we have Liz Lemon was unsure how to comfort her friend. Therefore, she tried to bring levity to the situation by telling a joke. So here, bringing humor to the situation. Now, levity has connotations of lightening a situation, making things more bearable, brightening people's spirits through humor. So that's oftentimes how it's used. So next we have belittle, which is a verb, and it means to put down and to disparage. Essentially, it means to insult in order to make somebody feel like less of a person. You're belittling them. So here we have Amanda Priestley, played by Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada, is portrayed as a ruthless boss who belittles her employees in order to assert her power over them. And so here we see her saying, details of your incompetence do not interest me. That is her belittling her. All right, next up we have the word extraneous, which is an adjective that essentially means extra. It's irrelevant, it's extra, it's unnecessary. So here we have Kermit the Frog encouraged himself to avoid sharing extraneous information through rambling tirades at the party. Other Muppets just didn't care about random fun facts. And so you can get more information on that from this meme. But extraneous essentially means being extra. The word is in there, so that should help you remember the adjective. So next up we have digress, which is a verb, and it means to stray away from the subject. If you want to turn that into a noun, you would make it digression. So here we have an example of using digress in its noun form. Cecilia was known for telling long, winding stories filled with digressions. However, they were also very funny and ultimately worth taking the time to listen to. So you might say Cecilia digresses, which would be using it as a verb, or you might say Cecilia was known for digressions, which uses the noun, and essentially means getting off topic while trying to tell a story, and this picture does a good job showing that. So next up we have emulate, which is a verb, and it means to copy something admired, to imitate. So here we have Nico was able to perfectly emulate the fighting style of his favorite action movie star. He learned every movement specifically until he could do them all on his own. So emulate essentially means copy, but it has connotations of admiring the person or event or song that you're emulating. So copying something because you admire it. So next up we have appease, which is a verb, and it means to make peace with, to satisfy. So here we have Christina took great pride in her medical abilities. Therefore, when being complimented about her look, she responded, "Oh, screw beautiful, I'm brilliant. You want to appease me? Compliment my brain." So here appease essentially means to please someone, but it has connotations of pleasing someone because you want them to like you, because you want to get something out of the relationship. So it's kind of like sucking up. However, appease doesn't have as negative connotations as sucking up to someone, but appease does have connotations of being possibly slightly weaker because you're trying to satisfy someone in order to make them less angry or less disagreeable. And that goes along with the idea of making peace with, to satisfy. So next up we have the word sage, which is the noun, and then we have the verb version, which is sagacious, which is fun to say, and it is a wise person. So here we have Yoda is one of the most famous sages in cinema, providing Luke Skywalker with the necessary training to defeat the dark side. So Yoda is sagacious. He's very sagacious. Look at that sagacious fellow. And so sage is the noun and sagacious is the adjective. So next up we have the word nostalgic, which is also an adjective, and it's yearning for the good old days. So here we have, whenever I play Mario Brothers, I become nostalgic for my childhood when I had plenty of time to play video games and eat Cheetos. So nostalgic is kind of maudlin, it's very sentimental, and having the desire to return to a better time, even if in reality it wasn't a better time. So a lot of times it has to do with wearing like rose-colored glasses and remembering things as being better than they were. Alright, So next up we have assuage, which is a verb, and it means to soothe. Assuage and appease have a lot in common, in which you're both trying to calm someone. However, while appease means to satisfy and make peace with, assuage means to quiet someone who's upset, to soothe them. And so it's slightly different. It's worth going back and making sure you note the difference between the two. So here we have: the babysitter rushed to find a toy that could assuage the crying of the infant and lull her back into a peaceful sleep. So this is slightly different than appease. You're not trying to satisfy the baby. You're not trying to please them. You're trying to make them less sad, less anxious, less whatever that is, wailing. So assuage means to soothe. All right. So next up we have saccharine, which is an adjective that means overly sweet. Alright, so you might actually know this word if you read the labels of food, because saccharin is a sweetener. However, we're not using that kind of saccharin. So saccharin means overly sweet, and Dahlia found the pink pony saccharine, preferring Legos and Play-Doh to the whimsical toy. So this little pink pony is a little girly, and so some people like Dahlia might find it saccharine, too sweet. They don't like it because it's very girly, and they prefer Legos and Play-Doh. Alright, to each their own. So next we have stanza, which you likely are familiar with. It's a noun and it's a section of a poem, kind of like the paragraph of a poem. So here we have, in creative writing class, Daniel played around with the words in the poem stanza until he was able to create his own original poem. Alright, so those are our words for this lesson. Please make sure to use the practice slides in order to review them before taking your assessment. Thank you for watching.